Welcome to the second session this morning. This session is a panel on activism, and I'm very happy to be on this panel here, moderating this panel with three very distinguished student activists and business activists here who have a great experience and a great deal of experience, especially when it comes to advancing our values within their networks as well. So I want to start off actually by giving the floor to Mate to talk about his experience in Hungary. We all know basically this is a country that's not necessarily the most liberal these days, and it's facing many problems. So I'm very excited to hear from Mate about his activism in Hungary.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm Mate, and okay. Great. So I will be talking about why students matter and why is it important for students to be active, and what happens when students became uninterested in activism. So this first picture is, as you all recognize, is Harry Potter, which is, I think, a great example of student activism. And if we disregard the fact that what kind of social and political implications are in a book or in the books basically are retelling the story of how students manage to change the world. And it's very interesting, but students can be inactive, and that's a huge problem. That nowadays students are more and more indoctrinated to be apolitical, and that's, I think, one of the problems of the educational system, which indoctrinates people. It wants to put people into boxes, make every student alike. They don't want individuals to exist, and they don't want them to form their own opinions, because they can criticize the government and criticize the existing order, and that's a huge problem. So the educational system is, the public educational system obviously is aimed to suppress the critical thinking and the skepticism of students. And students all over the world are very much the formers of the popular opinion, because students are still young and they still can form their own opinions and their own professional life. They can adjust their studies and their professions accordingly. And also people are paying attention to students because they are the young, innovative people, and they, in a university paradigm, they exist in masses. So they have a huge network, and that is why many of the revolutions were started by students in Hungary, in the Czech Republic as well, and all over the world. But as I will move to Hungary, after the change of regimes, Hungarian students became more and more inactive, and that was a huge problem. That nowadays Hungarian students, perhaps more than in many of the European countries, are apolitical, meaning that they are not interested in politics. They are disappointed by the political changes. They think that politicians are boring people, and they don't even watch the news. They don't know what happens. So there are not many student groups, or basically there are 3 or 4 student groups in whole of Hungary, and you can imagine that not all of them are pro-liberty leaning. So this is what happens when the students are inactive. This is a picture of a neo-Nazi group holding a paramilitary march and gathering, and this is what's going on in Hungary. There is a huge surge of Nazism, and the government is currently stripping away the freedom of the people. They are suppressing the NGOs because NGOs are enabling students, and the NGOs themselves try to form the popular opinion. So it's a huge problem that students do nothing, or when they do something, they move away. And that's of course a solution, voting with your feet, but it's vital, for students to stand up against what they think is not right and do something. So I would like to raise some other examples. These are positive examples of how students manage to affect the world. This is an essay by Lawrence W. Reed, the student essay that changed the world. It's about Thomas Clarkson, who was a student in the UK, and he wrote an essay to an essay contest, and he raised the issue of how slavery should be banned. And he got interested in the issue and started a campaign. He gathered friends and he started and worked, and through a lifelong journey he managed to live through the abolition of slavery in Britain. And the other example is the Danish resistance, which was very popular and very active during the occupation of Denmark during the Second World War, where the Danish people, when the Holocaust began in Denmark, the Danish people as a whole rose up against the Nazis and basically saved most of the Jewish population in Denmark, and the students were very active. They were locating the Jewish individuals and helped them cross the channel and move to safety. So, and the last example is, of course, Students for Liberty, which is nowadays the greatest organization for enabling young people and students, and it provides a perfectly good network for students, and it helps them learn leadership skills and help them get their voices heard. So I think that Students for Liberty is the best way in order for libertarian students today, and don't forget that what can happen when students are not politically active. So I would like to encourage everyone to be more and more active. Thank you very much.
Mate, we're going to the next speaker now, Hansa. He will talk more about a different perspective, and he will talk about business and why basically students and young people should be more involved in business as well.
Okay, let me just set it up here. I don't have a presentation for you, but still I would like to talk about something which is really close to me, and it is business. I have a real problem with the paper here. I'll just hold it. Okay, so my name is Honza, and I'm founder of Visionary Media company, which stands behind Visionary Reach Your Goals application. And I don't feel obliged, I don't feel experienced enough, rather, to talk about business in general perspective, but I would like to give you some insights from what I experienced in my life. First of all, we heard an incredible presentation on how we as students can be active in the students area, but also I think you agree with me that as students we have quite a lot of time. Like, unless you study medicine and law, you still have quite a lot of free time, and business is our option that you can do while you study. I would like to present 4 arguments why we should do business as students, and also I would like to present 4 points of what should we be wary when we go to business. First of all, what is to do business? How can we do legally business in Czech Republic? There are 3 ways how to do business. You can start your own company, which requires your own capital and your own idea. Secondly, you can buy a franchise, which is already an idea which is profitable, but you need to have a capital of your own. Or you can join structures where you're basically a distributor of someone else's idea, and it usually doesn't require that much of a capital of your own. But more importantly, why should we do business? First of all, you are a master of your own time when you do business. But this is also really important to understand that it comes with some responsibility. When you're a master of your own time, you are the one making decisions whether you're going to movies or you're going to progress your own business. Secondly, you have an opportunity to make your ideas come true, to do what you love. And this is probably the most important thing when you do business. Thirdly, you make connections. Like, since the time I'm doing business since I was 19, which is 3 years now, and I have made incredible connections. And multiple times I've been offered a job as an employer, sometimes employment that people don't get in their entire life, just because I started doing something I love. And 4th point is that you get experience. And I think this is the most important point, because you by yourself are your ultimate project. You are your ultimate business. And when you do business, you're able to progress yourself, and you get amazing experiences. You meet incredible people, and you are better as a person in the end. Now, what can you encounter when you do business? Now, at the start, there's an idea. But maybe this is hard to hear, but actually idea means nothing when it comes to business. We all have ideas. It's the execution of idea that matters, and it's the transition of your idea into a product, which you can market. And do you know where there are most ideas in the world? It's the graveyards. Because people usually carry their ideas to their grave. Only a very limited amount of people actually execute their own ideas. And I think that it comes down to our decisions. And I encourage you to go for ideas, and I can encourage you to execute your own ideas. And it is closely connected to the second point, and it is experience. And this is what I learned the hard way. Don't be afraid to first go to experience before you go in making your idea true. Because sometimes we feel like the idea that we have, that it's really unique and it's going to change the world. But in fact, once you start executing your idea, it will change entirely anyway. So you might as well get the experience in the field where you want to do business. Maybe you want to start an application. Maybe you want to make new shoes. So go and learn from a shoemaker. Go and learn how to make application before you actually start making your idea come true, because this way you may save yourself quite a lot of troubles on the road. Thirdly, it is about your attitude when you go to business. You have to be prepared that you will fail multiple times, again and again and again. And it is really about the attitude that you feel that each step that you fail progresses you that much more to the point where you want to be, that will get you there in the end. That is, as Steve Jobs said, you can only connect the dots looking backwards. And for example, I can tell from my own experience, when I started my own company, we came to an investor, and we wanted him to invest in our company about 1 million crowns at the moment. And he rejected us, and it was really hurtful at the moment because we felt we had a great idea. But it was the best thing that could have happened to us, because it made us realize our project by our own means. It made us go there, have an office in a kitchen where we also had a bedroom at 20 square meters. It made us stronger, and at the moment we are talking with investors who offer us 10 times, 20 times more, just because we were able to execute our idea by our own. But at the time, if the investor invested in us, it would be the worst thing that could have happened to us. So don't be afraid to fail, as Steve Jobs said. And the most important thing is to know why you do want to do business, why you want to be active as a student. Because unless you know why you're doing the business, you will fail at the moment when you least expect it. You need to know why you want to wake up at 6 a.m. and do your business, why you want to go to the conference on Saturday and not go to the movies. And this will carry you through. And this is very closely related to the personal freedom, because I think that doing business is really about, as I said in the beginning, realizing your own ideas, and which is closely connected to our own liberty. Because we are living only one life, we have one opportunity. And I think that we should live our life to the fullest. We have been granted the opportunity to live in a free world. We should enhance thoughts about liberty, and we should support it. And I think this is really what it's all about. Because when my director in my last employment, he told me before I started doing business that there's a chance 1 to 1,000 that I will fail in a year. There's a chance 1 to 1,000 that I will never ever make money out of this project. And it was eye-opening for me. Because there's a chance 1 to 1,000 that you can live your dreams. There's a chance 1 to 1,000 that you can do what you always dreamed about. Compare it to a lottery. If it were 1 to 100,000, I would still do it. So I support you to go out there and do your own businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I want to introduce Eirik, who's coming all the way from Norway to talk about his experience with founding a group and with student activism.
Thank you, Lucas. First, I want to say that I'm honored to be here. It's been a great conference so far, and I look forward to enjoy the weekend with you. So, if you look at the previous speakers, I noticed that I will go a little too far now to make a point, but we have like the intellectual and the more like practical guy. And when we start a student group, we are in this split of this dichotomy between being intellectual and being practical, because it's a group for intellectual people, but we still need to be practical to make things actually happen. So our biggest challenge, as I see it, is to actually bridge this gap and actually be good leaders as well, and not too visionary, because that's a problem many student leaders have for Liberty, that we are visionary people for society, and we have a tendency to be maybe too visionary ourselves when we are leading a group. I'm very much so myself. So I think that's a key issue to think about. I also want to briefly touch on why this is important for you, and where your motivation lies. Because I'm a great believer of egoism, and I believe that you really need to see your self-interest in running a student group, because it doesn't pay and it takes a lot of time. Things to think about is that you have a great opportunity to advance yourself as a person. You have opportunity to enter ESFL. You have opportunity to have a career there, and through that you have the opportunity to actually learn a lot of. You can gain a lot of qualities that you wouldn't otherwise have, and I think it's absolutely beneficial when you are applying for jobs or similarly later. Also, a little bit back on the intellectual versus practical thing. When we are leaders and we are dealing with practicalities as well, we need to pay attention to details, and we need to be active, like in the moment, and brag about ourselves. Because the group will only be what you make it to be, so you just need to brag about it and make it appear as big as you can, and yeah, it will become that big eventually. So I think I'm going to cut it here to open a little more time for you for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Eirik. I think basically those were three very good presentations, and those are three very different presentations here from what we've heard. And I think the question that I want to address to all of you before I want to open the floor for general questions is, how do you get people involved? You know, we've heard a lot about the importance and about, how great it is actually to be active, right? But how do you get people involved?
I think that the first and foremost importance of getting people involved is to find the thing that interests people, to find the hook, and make it interesting for people in order to join your group and start a group. Because show them how it will be worth for them to do so, and find a gap in the market to expand into and find what they are interested in. I think that's one of the most foremost thing, and then you can slowly teach them to your own ways, and you can all of you can brainstorm and reach a synergy. But the most important thing is to find something that will be mutually beneficial for all of you.
Yeah, I think this is right. Basically, make them feel that the problem you're trying to solve is also their problem. Make them feel that the pain that you feel is also their pain, and make them involved in your solution.
I would add that you should try to make them feel like they are outsiders if they don't join you. You need to make your group look very accepted. It might be that you feel like you're not welcome on campus, but when your appearance should be like you feel very welcome, or else people will be scared away.
I mean, these are very good points, actually. And in the end, any kind of activism, any kind of getting people involved, we should not forget that it's actually about changing people's lives. You know, I know that, for instance, the Students for Liberty has changed my life, and it's just changed the life of probably like most of the people who are involved in this organization. It's the case for many other groups where you do activism in, right? So this is also something that's very important to emphasize on. I'm just going to see that we can open the floor here for questions to our panelists here. Do I see any questions here from the audience? Just raise your hands and we can pass around the microphone. So, any questions?
Hi, may I ask what is liberty for you? Because I'm a little bit concerned that there is, as I can see it online, quite a lot of people in Students for Liberty who call themselves left libertarians or something else. And I would call them socialists, as Mrs. called, Montpellerian Society members many years ago. So what liberty means to you, and what do you think about this problem? Thanks.
We're going to take several at a time, so more questions?
Thank you. I noticed, I'm already almost 40, I noticed that there are much more businessmen among college people, like Honza, than when I was at the college in 1995, for example. At that time, most of the people were willing to become successful employees working for large corporations. Now I feel like it's a little bit shifting towards become a successful businessman, having my own independence, my own business. Do you feel like that also, that there are more of your schoolmates trying to be successful in their own business instead of working for Coca-Cola, Nestle, or ExxonMobil, which are good jobs? And the second question, if I may, do these people lean towards freedom more than the other students of your schoolmates? Thanks.
We'll take one more, and then is there any more questions at this point? Okay, well, so let's start with the first question, which is basically about liberty and what it means to you, and about the divisions in the movement. You guys want to start, or?
Okay, so I think these names of being conservative or socialist and so on and so forth are only labels, and most of the people doesn't really know what it means. They identify themselves with a group without having the full understanding of what it means. And even within the libertarian movement, many people can identify themselves as minarchists or anarchists or more conservative liberals or social liberals, but I think at this point it doesn't really matter. If we all want to advance liberty, we agree, we join up in this group because we agree that liberty is paramount, and we want to bring on a more freer society. And after that, of course, there will be more arguments on how we would like to realize it and what the practical things would be. But to this point, I think we shouldn't. We can argue about liberty academically among ourselves, but it's important that we try to go on advancing liberty as a whole, as a unit, because we will have to make coalitions and synergies with with those who we don't agree fully, because otherwise every man has their own opinion. So we as individuals are unique, and I don't think there's two single people in the room who would agree on every single thing. So it's important to be tolerant to others' view and work together, towards a common goal.
I view liberty on the very basic sense that liberty basically means to me my right to execute my will to the extent that I don't offend someone else's. And to the second question, I think when it comes to student and business today, we need to look to that point from the perspectives of how can we make business. There are quite a lot of students, I feel, who try to go into the structural business. Less of them to franchise, obviously, because most students don't have capital. And I think there is an advancement in students who try to make their own business, and it is due to the fact that we see today even universities starting their own startup programs, supporting people with ideas. So I think that there are more students today than maybe there was 10 or 15 years ago, and I hope that there will be even more in the future. Now, to the second part of the questions, I most certainly think that the students who go to business are more critical to government and feel that sometimes government backs them down, or not backs them down, but slows them down. Definitely here in Czech Republic when it comes to bureaucracy. So I think it enhances their critical thinking, thus make them feel less secure in the ideas about the government.
Yeah, when we are talking about liberty, we are talking about the right to act as against the right to others people action. That's how I would define it, the right to action. And it's true, we have a lot of different ideologies inside ESFL, and yeah, it's a big tent organization, so we do have that, and people arrive at the conclusion of liberty for different reasons and with different moral standards, and there's also a lot of differences in philosophy and methodology. So, but what we have in common is we want more of the right to act.
Mm-hmm. What I would like to know as well, and I think this is also a question that's relevant for everyone who's actually involved in activism and starting a group, or what's your guys' take on leadership in student activism? How do you view this? How do you approach the topic as well? How basically are you an effective leader of a student group?
I think the word leader is a very interesting and funny word in a libertarian society, as people don't really tend to accept any authority, but it is important. Leadership is very important, and leadership is important when you can choose your own leader. So I think the most important thing as a student libertarian leader is to be competitive and respond to other competition. You have to be the best in order for other students to accept you as a leader. So you have to adjust to the needs of your students and see what they are needed. There is no rule of how to be a good leader. You have to observe how your students respond, and different students respond, different student groups in different countries respond to different leadership skills in completely different ways. So it's very important to adjust and see your own objectives, and not. You don't want to be a leader, you want to be an advocate of liberty, and you must realize that the best way to advocate liberty is by, for example, a student group which you have the capacity to try to guide. So you have to be more of a guide than a leader strictly speaking.
When it comes to authority, I found out that there are many ways to derive authority, but two most important for me were first passion. be passionate about what you do, and other people will follow because they will want part of your energy, they will want part of that passion. And secondly, your passion will allow you to progress your skill. It will allow you to be better at what you do, and those two are really connected. One of them won't be enough. If you're not skilled, well, your passion will only get you so far. And if you're skilled but you're not passionate about what you do, your skill will only get you so far. So I would advise you to be skilled at what you do and to be passionate about it.
So, contrary to what most people say, I will actually argue that when you're leading a local group, you actually have to micromanage to make things happen. And I think that's something people are trying to look away from, and it's not so cool to talk about that, but I think that's just something that needs to be accepted.
Okay. Could you maybe talk a little bit more about this? Because, I mean, I think it's a very interesting point of view here to say, well, we all basically believe in liberty, we all have the same ideals, in how much actually you can, not only micromanage, but also make demands from basically the people, the activists that you're working with. Where do you draw the line? Basically, how far can you go in terms of really making people feel obliged to do something, and moreover, actually, really almost going into demanding, certain kind of things from your activists.
So we don't pay our students activists, so there's that. So that makes a line for where you can, for how far you can take the micromanagement. But then again, if you make somebody do something, if you hand out a task, can you please do this, and you will see that people tend to be more motivated to work for their group as they invest time in the organization. The more time they have invested in the organization, the more they are a part of it, and the more motivation they have themselves to work in it. So some people need more to be pushed more in the beginning, and then they will have a strengthened motivation later.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to add something to this, or from your own experience? Okay.
I would like to say that it's very important to realize which one of your activists are passionate enough to be involved in many things, and of course not everyone will be passionate just as much as you are, and it's very important not to force people to do things that they are not very keen to do. So you must find the people that will be very passionate, for example, in organizing, and you must find people who will be passionate about speaking, and you must realize what people are very keen to do, and that's the marvel of individualism, that each and every individual will be good at something, and you must find exactly how you can utilize this passion of the individuals.
The three of you have very different experiences and very different backgrounds with what you do and with what you've been talking about in this panel here. And one question I think that's also relevant to everyone here is, why do you think, from your own perspectives, aren't people more involved? Why do you think basically that there is a reluctance amongst students and young people to really get involved, to really engage in a cause, be it liberty or anything else, or basically go into business and take certain kind of risks as well?
Well, I can see the Hungarian perspective where people are very much disenchanted from politics, if I may say so, because nothing really changed. The political situation has been stagnating. People were hoping that something will be better, and it didn't really happen. So people said that, okay, politics are not interesting anymore. We cannot achieve anything via politics because it's a static system. You cannot do anything, and that's a huge problem. They don't see positive examples of how activism can actually work. And after the Second World War, the NGOs were emerging, and it's still a relatively early stage in the civic movements, but you can see how vital and important and actually effective NGOs can be. So more positive examples should be shown, and the problem is that many of the political issues are very boring to students. They don't pose anything interesting and anything beneficial for students who wouldn't want to pursue the path of politics, who are only interested in issues like drug legalization or, for example, social liberties. They don't want to go to politics, and many libertarians don't want to go to politics because, of course, they don't want to serve the state. But it can be wrong in some level because you have to make compromises, and there can be very good libertarian politicians, as you can see, Rand and Ron Paul, for example. If I don't agree with many of the things they say, but they are still very good libertarian politicians. And for example, Ron Paul, I think Ron Paul was responsible for the huge advancement of the libertarian movement and libertarian activism by daring to put forth ideas that no one had dared before. So if you don't get involved in some level in politics, then of course it will not change. So it's a catch-22 that if you think that politics are stagnating, that nothing is changing, then you should step up. And that's the entrepreneurial spirit, that if something doesn't work, you must make steps in order to work. You don't want to be passive, because if you do nothing, then of course nothing will change.
I would actually argue to the point that students were always active, especially here in Czech Republic. We have a history, last century, of students being active and making a change. It's just that today we have more options. We have incredible opportunities like today to gather here and hear incredible people and their ideas. So I think it's more on account to the environment that we live in today, that we have those incredible opportunities. We have an opportunity to do business, to be active as a student, and of course there are more students today than there was 30 years ago.
We are living in affluent societies now, and I think that plays a huge role, that we have most of what we need, and people don't see the need for any more liberty. For all they know, they are free, actually. So we need to inspire them, to make them see that, we need to make them see what more there are out there.
All right.